News Now Houston put a link up to this particular video by NEO Guardian. I believe that's Northeast Ohio Guardian. Because obviously NEO Guardian was a good boy who didn't do nothing. Always. It's always just the evil cops. And it struck me as very disingenuous. So I'm going to break it down a little bit for you. I've already explained why the First Amendment doesn't necessarily protect you filming in police stations. I'm not going to cover that again. I'm just going to show some of the ridiculousness that we got going on here. So the first place I'd like to start is at 6:35 roughly of the video. What we see here is he's filming the hours of operation. That's gonna come into play in a minute. He focused on it. He filmed it. He spent several seconds looking at it. Zoomed in on it. I mean, that's a good 4 seconds or so of video of him looking directly at the hours of operation. So at 10:03, we've got the police officer stating...
He gave it to me.
It's after business hours.
It's after business hours, right? So we know that the hours that he filmed, even if he didn't recognize it when he filmed it, which he's claiming not to, and I'll even take him at his word for it. It doesn't really change the legality of the situation. But even if he didn't know that he was there after hours, the officer just told him it's after hours. But he thinks that he's got a right to be there, and so we continue on.
Okay. Well, you asked me to leave. I was getting ready to leave after.
Well, now you're trespassing.
You asked me to leave. I was getting ready to leave, and the officer says, well, now you're trespassing. That's very important. So let's go to let's always start at the statutes, my friend. That's where you start. Criminal trespass. This is Ohio, which applies because Warren Township is in Ohio. No person without privilege to do so. Privilege means that you have some sort of a legal right to be there. Like the gas meter reader has a right to be there on your property, even if you don't want him there. The police, if they're chasing a suspect, have the right to be there. Renters have a right to be there, etc., etc., etc. Shoppers have a right to be there. So no person without privilege shall do any of the following: knowingly enter or remain on the land or premises of another. And you're going to say, well, this is publicly accessible property. Knowingly enter or remain on the land or premises of another, the use of which is lawfully restricted to certain persons, purposes, modes, or hours, when the offender knows the offender is in violation of a restriction or is reckless in that regard. Recklessly enter or remain on the land or premises of another, to which notice against unauthorized access or presence is given by actual communication to the offender, or in a manner prescribed by law, or by posting in a manner reasonably calculated to come to the attention of potential intruders, or by fencing or other enclosure manifestly designated or designed to restrict access. Being on the land or premises of another, negligently fail or refuse to leave upon being notified by signage posted in a conspicuous place, or being otherwise notified to do so by the owner or occupant, or the agent or servant of either. Well, I mean, there's so many places where that could apply, it's kind of ridiculous. He did know. So remember, knowingly means that he actually saw and read the sign. Remember, there's 4 levels of mens rea kind of thing. There's intentional. That means that you went out to accomplish the thing that you got arrested for. Like, if I go out to kill somebody and then I kill them and then I get arrested for that murder, that was an intentional act. Knowingly means that I don't go out necessarily to commit the crime, but I know that the crime will be the end result. it's a little harder for me to do that without putting intent in there. But say, for example, I remove the sign saying "bridge out" ahead. I just remove it. I know that people are gonna drive off the end of that bridge because it's a busy road, and I remove that sign. That would be knowingly. Recklessly means that I should know, but I'm just complete. I know there's probably going to be problems, but I just don't care. So that would be, recklessly would be like where I'm paid to stand there and hold the sign saying "bridge out" ahead, but I'm hungry and I want to go to lunch. And so I leave and I go to lunch. And I know, or should know, that people are still going to drive off the end of that bridge. That'd be reckless. Negligently is the lowest level. That's basically where, like in the action, where instead of going to lunch, it's where there's been no one coming for a long time down that road. And I think, well, I could just sneak off to take a quick snack. And I do that, and someone ends up dying as a result or getting injured as a result. That'd be negligently. And I don't know that someone's going to do it. I'm not reckless. I don't have a reckless disregard for it, for whether or not somebody's going to do it. But I'm negligent in it. So you have to, for this one, you have to know that he entered or remained on the land of another, right? So knowingly means he read the sign and understood it. But it can also be, or is reckless in that regard. Or recklessly enter or remain on the land or premises of another. Reckless. Or being on the land of another, negligently fail or refuse to leave upon being notified by signage posted in a conspicuous place, or by otherwise being notified to do so by the owner or occupant. That is so, I mean, as soon as he knew, as soon as he was told expressly that it's after business hours, he should have just turned and walked out. Then he may have had an argument, depending on which one of these. I'd have to go through case law, and I don't feel like doing that now, but I'm just saying that you could make an argument pretty much under any of these, except for the knowingly portion, because you'd have to prove that he knew, and you probably could. A good prosecutor could prove most likely that he knew simply by showing his video. Oh, well, he said after the fact that he didn't read it. Well, that's a question of fact that the jury will have to determine. And considering he zoomed in on it after he had been reading other things, expressly reading them out loud, I think a good prosecutor could make the case easily that he knowingly entered the land or premises of another when it was lawfully restricted to certain hours. And at 10:08, he was notified that he was trespassing. That is a crime. He has now been notified that he committed a crime. And then the officer did the song and dance with him, being pretty polite and gentle, I should say, trying to get him to accept lawful orders. Once you're detained for an actual crime, they could cuff you. So, I mean, they could get you to stop filming. I don't know how you would necessarily get around that. I mean, your lawyer could make an argument if it does come up that you could keep filming, but I don't see that as a particularly either pertinent point or winning point on any real matter of substance. So anyway, 1330 something ish, the Neo Guardian takes us to codes.ohio.gov. He takes us to this right here, codes.ohio.gov. I think that's where, yeah, codes.ohio.gov. It's a .gov website. This is the actual Ohio government website for their laws, right? And failure to disclose personal information. So right here, no person who's in a public place shall refuse to disclose the person's information when requested by a law enforcement officer who reasonably suspects either of the following: that the person is committing, has committed or is about to commit a criminal offense. Well, the officer has stated that Neo Guardian, I think that was his name? Yeah, Neo Guardian was trespassing. That is a crime. He reasonably suspects Neo Guardian is doing it. Therefore, Neo Guardian has to give up the information. Now, I want to point out something that Neo Guardian did that is very, very disingenuous. Incredibly disingenuous. So we're looking at the official government website right here. This is still the official government website. And then, movie magic. Movie magic is about to take place. Oh, blur out, blur back in. What's this? Basically, you can ask that officer who asks for your ID what crime they suspect you of committing. If they cannot answer or do not suspect you of any offense besides people being alarmed over you exercising your right or the fact that you are exercising that right, you can refuse to provide them with identification and simply ask if you are being detained or if you are free to go. Well, that is a very, very interesting sentence, or paragraph, I should say. And you may wonder why he did that little, blur out, blur back in kind of deal. It's because he switched websites. He switched to www.ohiocarry.org ID laws-html. This is what he was reading. So first of all, let me just say that Ohio Carry is nothing in this website is to be considered legal advice. Consult a lawyer when any firearm issue or law is concerned. Ohio Carry is not responsible for any legal or civil action taken against anyone as a result of any topic on this site, etc., etc. This isn't legal advice. This isn't the government saying that you have the right to do this. And also, you may suspect correctly that this language makes a lot more sense when you're dealing with a right such as carrying a firearm, which you may legally do and is not a crime, whereas trespassing is a crime. The officer stated what crime that they suspect you of committing. Not that he has to. The officer does not have to state that you have committed a crime. But what they're saying here is that if you are not detained, if the officer is still engaging you in a consensual encounter, you can essentially stop that consensual encounter by asking them what crime they suspect you of committing, and essentially asking if you are being detained. And if they say, I don't suspect you of a crime, or I'm not detaining you, then you can simply walk away. Or basically you could clarify with them that if you're being detained or if you're free to go. And if they say you're not being detained, you're free to go. However, in this situation, the officer clearly stated that he was being detained, clearly stated the crime which the Neo Guardian was suspected of committing, which was criminal trespass. And whether or not it was criminal trespass, that's got to be shaken out in court. You're not going to argue it on the spot with the cop. He believes that you've done it. All he has to do is reasonably believe that you've done it. Reasonably suspects. That's all he has to do in order to get that ID. So, failure to ID would be a misdemeanor. And it is a misdemeanor, I believe. Yeah. So, we got two misdemeanors here that seem pretty easy. I don't know if the state's going to pursue charges on them, but yeah. So there we go. That's the analysis I was going to give on that. If you have any questions, let me know. Again, nothing that I'm giving you is legal advice. I am not licensed to practice in Ohio, nor do I wish to. Have a great day.